David Morgan is an expert on silver, gold, and precious metals investments. He's a world-renowned lecturer appearing on CNBC and the Fox Business Channel. He's an author, having penned Get the Skinny on Silver Investing. And Mr. Morgan is a regular contributor and friend of the Ellis Martin Report.
David, welcome back to the program.
Oh, it's great to be back.
This is an interesting week. It started off at least with a continuation of a tank in the stock market. Are you nervous about anything right now?
I'm nervous about the year 2016, Ellis. I really think this is probably a watershed year. I know I've said that, I think, a year or two ago, but it's coming to the fore. I mean, the stock market usually has a pretty good lift in January. They're not worldwide. And even the, let's say, proponents of the market always goes up, long-term investing in the stock market at all, are starting to get nervous here. There's a couple of points chart-wise, if they're broken to the downside on large volume, would be very good indicators that it has further to go to the downside, and I think that's the situation.
Comparable to 2008 or too soon to tell?
Well, too soon to tell, but bringing up 2008, it's been my strong belief and contention, and others as well, that we never really recovered from 2008. And everything that's been done from that point until now has been sort of do the best that we can, throw out a bunch of funny money, reliquify the banks, promote the stock market. Stock market's gone up. Let's look at a fact. But overall, the real physical economy has deteriorated. There's been some ups and downs, but overall, the recovery has not taken place.
What do you think is going to happen in Texas long term due to the oil rout that we're seeing, or we have been seeing for a while?
Well, if you look at a real free market, what you're going to see is you see all the malinvestment go away. And you're going to see the people that have capital come in and either buy the assets if they're worth buying, or they just don't ever come back onto the marketplace, and you'll get a much firmer, tighter, more efficient market. That's what should happen or could happen. Under the framework that we now have in the United States and basically on a global basis, where, there's these bailouts, bail-ins, deferments, extensions, whatever. It'll get a little bit messier than that, but the overall underlying trend will be what I outlined. You'll see basically the malinvestment go away, more efficiencies come in the market. Then depending on what the market does, I'm a pretty firm believer that, there's lots out in our future. In fact, it's probably here today as far as energy sources are concerned, but that doesn't mean that they're readily available, or nor will they be necessarily, which means we've got to look at the primary source, which of course is oil. And because of that fact, if you want to accept it as a fact, or my basis as correct, then we're going to have to see what happens as things get straightened out. The inefficiencies are taken off the market becomes more efficient, and what the demand level does in the future. And it could increase, which means you might see some price pressure to the upside over time. I'm not an oil expert. I don't analyze it like I do the commodity sector, or I should say the metal sector. I don't think you're going to see these prices remain at this level ad infinitum. The oversupply of maybe 1.5 million barrels a day is enough to drive the prices down. All markets move at the margin. Art Berman did an interview with Chris Martenson recently that I listened to twice, just so I could basically hone in and not miss anything. And it is what it is. I mean, he's very forthright on what the oil situation is, and he's, in my view, one of the best and one of the most truthful, if not. And because of that, it makes you stop and pause and realize that, this oversupply, which exists, isn't that big of an oversupply. So it could change before anyone knows it, so to speak. And because of that, I'm just waiting I'm a little more nimble and a little more bullish, let's say, on the oil sector than most people are at this point in time.
Well, it would take a simple incident to change what's going on in the Middle East, right? And change the price of oil. It wouldn't take a lot.
Absolutely true. And a lot of my brethren, and I say brethren in a very general, broad sense, that are in the newsletter industry, have already alluded to that. I've already seen some rather exaggerated claims like, $500 oils across the, right around the corner. Or, that's kind of the gist of it. The point is that, it is precarious. It's in a very unstable region of the planet. Of course, oil's pumped all over the place, but primarily gets so much from the Middle East. It's a tinderbox, and it's not getting better. So certainly something could disrupt the supply rather easily, and if that were to occur, you'd see the market probably overreact to the upside. So certainly you have to keep that in mind.
Would you be willing to speculate in oil stocks or oil-related stocks at this point, or no?
Well, as you know, we're rebranding to the Morgan Report, and there's a couple of reasons for it. One, that the Silver Investor's been on the web for I don't know what. Actually, it's been on the web for almost nearly 20 years, although it wasn't always on the URL silver-investor.com, because I bought that URL after I moved from California. But regardless, we're moving the paid report over to TheMorganReport.com because there is a misperception of people that don't subscribe as a member that it's basically a silver-only site, and it's not, and it hasn't ever really been that. The Morgan Report has always been focused on money, metals, and mining, and it's been focused on the broad picture, looking at the sector from two viewpoints, which very few newsletter writers do. I look at it from a commodity aspect and an equity aspect, and we look at both, and we show opportunities in both. And beyond that, we do things that basically no other news service, especially at our price level, does, which is on these field trips, we take a camera with us, so you get to look at the projects that we visit. Some are recommended, some are not, but you get to look at it from our perspective. In other words, it's almost as if you were in the truck with us going out to these projects. The other thing, we do it on the other side, which means we do it at the conferences, the webinars, the investment seminars, and that type of thing, which our members that pay us get to view from their own armchair looking at their computers. We also guarantee that if you're at the premium level, that any email that you send us will be answered. So one thing I didn't like as a newsletter subscriber when I was much younger was, you got a great question, but you might send it in, but unless the editor just decides to choose it to put in his letter and report back, you're not going to get a response. That's not true for our lowest level service, but for our premium service it is. The other part is looking over my shoulder. When I look at a trade, let's say something in the commodity side, like the bond market as an example, it's me doing it with my voice, showing you the chart or charts or what I'm thinking, and maybe some articles or whatever to back up the position, and you get it, firsthand, so to speak. I've gotten feedback from that, and most of the members really like that feature of the Morgan Report. And lastly, because we're moving it over and it's so cumbersome, I beg everyone to be a little bit considerate that, there will be some glitches, there'll probably be some errors, there'll probably be some times maybe you can't log in or something like that. We're only human. We absolutely are doing our best, and if there are any disruptions, bear that in mind that we may have some glitches. Nonetheless, we'll be on the Morgan Report. You'll be able to log in. It'll be much cleaner than it is now, as far as there won't be anything running on the server other than the reports and all the things I just described. And lastly, one thing that I really don't make a big deal about, but it really is, because the email system is just breaking down further and further and further. We saw that coming years ago, and we have for our membership a alert service for anything that we put out that goes directly onto their desktop and bypasses email altogether. Now, this is voluntary. It's available for no additional cost or anything, and you have to install it, and it's pretty easy for most people that are 40 years old or younger. Anyone above that age, I'm just doing a generality here at Ellis, could have it installed by our staff. They'll come in remotely into your computer and help you set it up. And then if we put out an update or an alert on one of the companies or something in the marketplace, like the oil thing as an example. So going full circle, we have an oil situation that we wrote up some time ago that's pretty heavy cash flow. It's a different business model. I'm not going to spill the beans over the radio show, but we have that as a recommendation. Actually, it's one of the first. There is another one that's one of our top tiers that's a gold and oil situation that just keeps on making money year over year. It almost keeps going up no matter what the market conditions. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but if you look at from the time we recommended it to now, it's an up and down and up and down and up and down line, but it's mostly to the up. In other words, if you drew the average, it keeps going up. So that's one that we like and have for a long time. In fact, it's my personal biggest holding. The last thing to say is price is going to go up. We're going to drop the basic service. The basic service is like 2 cups of coffee at $6. If you go into one of these coffee outfits, a couple cups of coffee, that's what it costs on a monthly basis to subscribe to the basic service. And that is the letter that you get every month, and sometimes there's updates and that type of thing. And that's $129 a year. If you buy that before we change the website officially on the 1st of February, you can lock that in as long as you're a member. So in other words, you could keep that low price forever. That whole service will go away to anybody new after the 1st of February. The premium membership that I took so long to describe, because there are so many things. There's the bonus reports alone are, I think we got 10 or 15 of them, not to mention all the private equity reports. We probably have about 15 of those. And anyway, back on point, the premium service will be at $500. That will be the new price. The current price is $269, so it's about half of that. So if you came in and became a member before we changed to the new website, you could lock in for $269 as long as you renewed every year. It's really geared to kind of wake people up, shake people up, and of course we know it's the bottom of the market, but if I could buy gold coin for half price right now, and just knowing a month out it's going to be double, I would do it. Gold coin's probably a bad analogy. You'll say a great newsletter service, I would definitely rather pay the lower price than the higher price. So we're trying to push it kind of hard. We want the people that used to subscribe to come back. We want new people to come in and get a really, really, really good price before it increases, but after it increases, it increases. That's it. I always have believed in quality over quantity, and it's really tough in this business because you can have a low price letter and appeal to a lot of people, or a high price letter and appeal to few. And I've always trying to kind of shoot for the middle, trying to make it expensive enough where someone that shouldn't be investing isn't going to buy it. I mean, if you have $2,000 to put in the market, you shouldn't be using my report. I mean, that's very simple. If you are a pretty active investor, then certainly my report's well worth the money. And then if you're a very high-end investor, our reports are still right at the top of any bank letter. I mean, our analysis is very similar in some ways, except it's more ethical from the price deck that we use in our analysis of these mining companies. And there's other companies, obviously. We do more outside of mining, but we're primarily focused, again, on money, metals, and mining. But that will continue to evolve as the markets evolve. So probably oversold it like usual, but nonetheless, I think it's an opportunity for people to listen to the Ellis Martin Report and understand what value is. We always look for value. We continue to look at it and get some value in your education or information flow. And we have information flow that very few in the industry have. Not to say that, I'm friends with almost everybody in the industry on the resource side. So we know what they write. We know what they say. We know what the caliber of their services are. And, there's good and bad in every one of them, and mine included. But regardless, as far as value proposition is concerned and conservative approach, we're still alive when many have died. Many in the newsletter industry are gone, and there's a reason for that. I really don't like to speculate that much. And then when I do, I like to bet money I can afford to lose. I don't like to go big or go home and lose everything that took me, 10 years to save on a couple of junior mining companies, and then I'm broke. I don't like that approach whatsoever. And I'm not advocating that anyone do that. I know at times some of our members do probably put in more than they probably should into some of these companies. And honestly, also I did it once myself in this bull market several years ago. Turned out badly, my own fault. And I think that was the last time I had to do it. I was probably 10 years younger than I am now, maybe 12. And I said, when am I going to learn my own lesson? So since that time till now, I really haven't done it. And the last thing is how to use the Morgan Report. That is something that's essential. I almost wish I could make them read it, because if you get into any equity or any commodity or whatever your investment is, you've got to watch it, and you've got to take responsibility for it, and you have to stop your losses. And that's all outlined on how to use the Morgan Report. So the reason I can't say, well, buy here and buy there, that's individual advice, but I can give an outline. If you buy X and there's a top tier and it drops 15%, you probably should get out of it, regardless of, how much I like it or whatever. And then, of course, we've bought them at much different levels as someone new would come in, although at this point in time, some of these equities are actually lower than we had recommended them initially, which is hard to believe since we've been in the business for so long, but nonetheless, that's the case.
Now, there's a free report available. Let's talk about that, about a new technology, one that you broke right here on the Ellis Martin Report last year, a mobile mill technology. You've had some success with it, and you can get this free report on the Morgan Report. Give us a little sneak preview.
No matter what you do, you get criticized. I mean, some people haven't liked it. I mean, this basically, what I'm doing on this is sort of a market test. I've actually given everybody for free the absolute complete breakdown on everything to do with this new technology for milling free gravity feed gold. Let's say you own a junior mining company and you're neutral on David Morgan. You could actually get this report for free and give it to your favorite junior miner that has gravity feed gold, and they might be able to run with it. In other words, make some money for their shareholders and fund their company and move it forward without having to dilute the shareholders. And I'm giving them absolutely everything that we've learned after following this company for more than 2 years, except the name of the company and the symbol. So it's like test driving the automobile of your choice and, getting everything you want. And, the only thing you haven't done is, sign the contract. If you like it and you wanted to speculate, and this is a speculation, so again, heed my warning, bet a little to win a lot, you could subscribe at this low price that we're running till the 1st of February and get the name of it and invest. And if you don't like it, then you're not going to go any further. So it's sort of like giving them absolutely everything you need to make a decision. Do I want it or don't I want it? In the meantime, you've learned a great deal about what I think could be a game changer in the junior mining space. This could be the situation that we've all been looking for a catalyst that starts to put some, let's say, positive thinking into the junior mining space. This could be something that the market's been actually looking for quite some time. Is it? I don't know. The market knows more than all of us, but it's something that's pretty exciting, and I'm not the only one. There's a very well-known personality that was down on site with us. I think it was his second visit. It was our first. I brought everybody with me on that trip, and we have several videos that we're going to put out for our membership that shows the process, shows one of these, very interesting personalities that I'm friends with, and his take on it, and on it goes. So something, again, that I think might just be that little shot in the arm we need in 2016 to finally get this market off rock bottom and start to move up to the upside.
Now, you just came back from Stockholm, Sweden, of all places, in the winter. Beautiful place. What were you doing there, David?
Well, it's getting cold, I'll tell you, but we have decided to put together another company, and this will be a royalty company, or what's more commonly known, I guess, as a streaming company. There's a slight difference between a royalty. It's usually a royalty company is usually a net smelter royalty. You can look up the term on Google if you're not familiar with it, versus a streaming company like Silver Wheaton. And we're more favorable to the companies that we do deals with. So we need some, seed capital, some investment money. We're able to raise that in Stockholm. And so if you're interested in something like that, I just want to be very brief here and just direct you to the website. It is LemuriaRoyalties.com. Lemuria is Lemuria Royalties.com. And you can get term sheet, take a look. It's nothing new. It's not anything unique other than what the approach is, meaning that I think it's more of a win-win for the company that accepts money for a gold or silver stream, as an example, that more favorable to both sides, or maybe more favorable to the company side, because what we've done differently is that when the price of gold and silver go up, these companies aren't penalized from the aspect that they got a fixed cost of like $4.75 an ounce silver, that as silver goes from, let's say, 15 to 45, they're only receiving $4.75 per ounce. They could receive a percentage basis the spot price. For, as an example, if you gave them 30% of the spot price at $15 silver, that'd be $5. But when it's 45 and you get 15% of the spot price, you get a far higher return. So I think that's more likable to the companies, and that's kind of the approach we're taking. Again, more is spelled out in the term sheet. You can, sign up. No obligation, obviously. It's just an information situation.
I received an email from you, as I do often because I'm a subscriber to the Morgan Report. You're doing a solutions conference in Las Vegas, starting out a busy year for you. What is the Solutions Conference? Tell me and tell your listeners what we have to look forward to.
Well, thank you again. Give the URL because it's the best way. It's called solutionsconference.us. And I'm getting a bit tired, I would say, about dwelling on the problem for all these years. I mean, the monetary problem is certainly significant. The bankers, at whatever level you understand it, are certainly a big part of the problem. But that's not all the problem. There's corruption. That's the main theme, I would say. You've got corrupt food supply, you've got corrupt air supply, you've got corrupt water, you've got corrupt politicians, you've got a corrupt monetary system, you've got corruption across the board. So the Solutions Conference is something I've been thinking about for quite some time, and then I wanted to come up with, absolutely the best, most powerful, most giving conference that I could possibly imagine. And that came from Chris Martenson and Adam Taggart, who wrote the book Prosper, that's just recently been published. And they talk about the 8 forms of capital. I've been focusing primarily on a financial form of capital, but there's living capital, material, knowledge, emotional, social, cultural, and time capital. Adam and Chris will be the keynote speakers. I will be speaking slightly on the financial side, but I'm going to touch on, in my personal life, on the material side, the knowledge side, the emotional side, the cultural side, and the living side, because I've done a lot on all those. And I'm just going to share with the live audience my views on those other forms of capital and what the solutions are, because money alone isn't the solution. If you think that the right amount of silver or gold coins or whatever is the right solution, you're not thinking very much. So it's very much something that's been kind of heavy on my heart. I want to be part of the solution. I don't want to be part of the problem. So this is my attempt in early 2016 to sponsor this first conference, win, lose, or draw, and see what the marketplace determines whether or not it's worthwhile or not, and then make the determination to move on or not.
So one positive highlight for 2016, prognosticate a little bit, tease something that might be nice for us this year.
Self-responsibility. I think you're going to see a lot more people to wake up and say, you know, I'm not dependent on government, I'm not dependent on XYZ corporation, I'm not dependent on this, I'm dependent on me. And I need, not in a selfish way, but in a conscious way, in a holistic way, in a realistic, mature adult attitude kind of a way. I used to say, and I still do occasionally, that you know you're an adult when you realize that the cavalry isn't coming to the rescue. You are responsible for your decisions. Most things in life are based on what choices we make. So make the right choices. You know, if there's a bad GMO food supply out there and you learn enough or you're educated enough to convince yourself and that's not the healthiest way to eat, then take the responsibility, seek out other sources of food. As a quick example, I don't want to run anyone's life. I certainly love the intellectual challenge of being a human being. I think it's fascinating. I think we're fascinating creatures, and I love to learn. And I don't have all the answers. I never claim to, but I certainly have a very inquisitive and critical thinking modality, something that, you know, I've learned not only as a kid, but, you know, through engineering school. We basically taught a lot of critical thinking, whether it's designing the curriculum or not, because it either has to be true or false. There's absolutes in the universe. Certainly there's gray areas, but there's a lot of absolutes. You can't just wish, you know, that your truth is that the moon's going to be at this position at such and such a time and you'll be able to get there. I mean, the only way you're going to get there is if you actually know exactly where it's going to be. So there are absolutes. So anyway, back on point, Alice, I think it's going to be a better year for each individual because they're willing to step up to the plate and get that aha moment. Yeah, you know, I'm going to take more responsibility for myself than I have in the past. As far as what the overall markets are going to do, et cetera, I'm looking for a decline in the stock market and a rebound in the precious metals market. So I'm looking for that shift to take place. Not in a huge way. I don't see any huge increases in precious metals prices this year. And I don't see any real huge decline in the stock market. But I think the shift will take place where we're back to where we're buying things that we need more than things that we want, meaning the paper markets will be coming down and the real things will be going up. Although I am pretty bearish on the overall commodity sector. I think that the only thing that's really going to be moving to the top will be the top tier of the commodity sector, which is money, which is the precious metals. I could be wrong on that, but with what we talked about, the oil markets, the Baltic Dry Index is very low on almost every one of these shows, and it's true. So I think we've got a big turnaround coming in 2016, but again, I think coming back to your own self, to their own self be true, that the Oracle of Delphi over the top walking in was a very important statement and something that should be taken to heart in 2016.
David, you're a very wise man. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I look forward to chatting with you again in the very near future. Thanks so much for joining us today on the program.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And, of course, you can find out about all things David Morgan, the gateway to David Morgan, and everything he talks about and beyond on TheMorganReport.com.
I've been speaking with the silver guru, David Morgan. His website is TheMorganReport.com. Listen to the segment again on the homepage of our website, EllisMartinReport.com, or download the entire Ellis Martin Report on iTunes.